Smack that. We're good to go.
We're good to go. Yep. So welcome back, everybody. Week 5 is almost in the books. Today, good news for everybody. It's going to be a short class. It's only about an hour. So today is negotiations, and it's the prelude to next week. So next week is our finale. Highly encourage you to participate, be there for next week, because we're going to bring Emilio in. We're going to do case studies for negotiations. We're going to give away some prizes, some books and stuff that are talking about negotiations and whatnot. And we're going to have a lunch as well for those of you that come here. So if you are at home and you want to come on in, we're going to have some pizza and whatnot tomorrow for everybody. On top of the Panera, do you want to do a quick show of everybody what the Panera looks like there, Matt? Just so everybody, you know, oh, wrong way.
That's the right way, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, see here, there used to be another box, but the folks here in the office have already eaten one full box. So, you know, that's what you've been missing all week or all month, right? So if you want to come in from Don Mills or wherever you are at home, we'd love to see you here and get you face to face, because you'll have a better experience in person with the case studies. We have essentially 4 people. Liam's usually in, so it's 5 in the audience and 7 or 8 at home. Matt, if you can't make it in though, Matt will put you in a what do you call those, groups or something, or like rooms, like in a room,
Breakout rooms.
a breakout room. So I mean, if you can't make it, don't worry. Still show up. We'll put you in a breakout room and take care of it. Want to start with a story before we go. We've got in our front row a realtor here. Do you want to come up in the front, or do you want to sit where you're? It's up to you.
Yeah, it's okay. Whatever you think is better.
Come on up. Let everybody get to see you. All right. We got an interesting story that happened last night, and we'll continue in this morning. And it's nothing to do with negotiations, the course, but it's from last week. So remember last week I talked about the statistics about being the first person in. Remember that? And the likelihood is that you're going to be able to secure the listing if you're the first person in, right? And so Anita here did that. So she got to be the first person in. And as the first person in, what happened?
Yeah, so I met with the sellers last night, and they showed me the house. They had a very good discussion. Everybody was happy, but the seller, the husband, was not comfortable because the agent that they bought this house from, he was in contact with them for a couple of years, but he never showed his face during the past years, just some texts and calls. And the guy said, well, you know what, this guy is supposed to come tomorrow. And what am I going to tell him?
Yeah.
That I hired another realtor, and the wife signed. And once the husband started to sign, he kept saying, oh, I can't make this call. And I said, no, don't worry about it. I'm going to make the courtesy call on your behalf. I've done it before. I've got similar calls. It happens in our industry. So let's just take this paperwork out of the way, and then after that, I make the call on your behalf. So he signed the agreement, and I have a listing. Everybody was happy, and we said goodbye. When I left, I was driving. I called this agent. So he missed my call, but he called me back right away. And I said, well, thanks for calling me back. My name is Anita from Royal Page. Like this person asked me to call you on their behalf. You were supposed to meet with them tomorrow, correct? He was like, yes, why are you calling me? And I said, well, they decided to sign the listing agreement with me. They are on the contract with me, so your meeting tomorrow is canceled. They just asked me to call you and let you know.
Yeah.
And he got so mad. He started yelling at me that this family, they were my client for the past, I don't know, 18, 19 years. You think you can steal my clients? And I was like, you know what? I'm just a messenger. I made this call to let you know. You're going to cancel this listing. I said, no way. This conversation is over. Have a good day. I hung up. So the guy called me 3 minutes after that. I didn't respond. He didn't take the call. He texted me, we need to talk. I didn't respond. So this morning at, I don't know, 9 o'clock, I got a text from my seller Anita, I want to cancel the agreement. I didn't respond. I came to the office and spoke to Mike.
Yes, so we talked about this last week about, being the first in, and then this, courtesy call type of thing. So she does all that, and this is the first time we've had somebody act like this. And what we think happened is after this interaction that he reached out to the seller, because now the seller wants to cancel. And that's after, she receives an intimidating response from this other realtor, right? Like basically bullying behavior, which is completely offside. And if he did contact the seller, that's violating our contract. In law, it's called inducing a breach of a contract. Very serious. It's one of the worst things you could do, quite frankly, as a realtor, right? So it's a RICO issue, but it's also a legal issue in civil law, contract law, because he's interfering with our contract right now. So when we finish our class, you're going to go visit with the sellers and have a heart to heart with the seller, and hopefully from last night it was such a positive experience with the husband and wife with her that they will continue on in that, because the last thing we're going to do at this stage after her being treated that way is canceling the listing so this guy can come in and basically steal it, right? So, but thank you for sharing. It just so happened we talked
That's
about
right
it last
after
week,
1 week, yes.
right? So these things, like I teach you, do happen from time to time. Just didn't realize it was going to happen so quickly.
Yes,
So thank you
that's
for
right.
sharing,
My pleasure.
and nobody deserves to be treated like that or to be intimidated like that
So
whatsoever.
we learn by experience. Now I learn how to handle
Yeah.
the situation.
Exactly, right? And so we learned from each other, right? Vicariously learning through each other is the best way to learn. And you'll remember her story now. I'll remember her story. And it'll improve my teaching to say, oh, because now I'll say there's an extra step that I never taught for 15 years. Tell your seller that there could be, on a rare occasion, this other realtor may call you and be obnoxious or be, bullying to you. Right? And we think that's what happened. We don't know for sure, but we're connecting the dots here and speculating, I guess, at this stage. So you'll find more out, and I guess we'll take it from there. But I just wanted to share that story, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Keep us posted.
Yes.
We'll give you an update next week. Yeah.
Corey online says the exact same thing happened to him last week, trying to interfere with him at client.
Really?
Yeah, it's apparently it's quite prevalent.
Well, I mean, to give the courtesy call is huge, right? For us to do that, it's a professional move, right? And for that realtor to react that way, if he's done that, we think it has, based upon the way he treated her, completely uncalled for. We do not need that kind of behavior in our business whatsoever, right? Because you don't want to intimidate anybody, let alone a man intimidate a woman. Come on, it's like, be a professional here. Take the high road. Yeah.
What happens if the sellers, they still want to go with the other realtor?
Good question. So the question is, what if they want to go with the other realtor? Well, contracts are not unilateral, meaning that when we enter into a contract, there's two parties. So the party A is seller, party B is the brokerage. The brokerage does not have to cancel the listing. And if this is what's really happened, which we believe it's what happened, we're definitely not canceling the listing. We want to move forward and help this family sell their house. We don't want to be intimidated and bullied and harassed by some man. Like, not happening, because that becomes a police matter, becomes a legal matter, becomes a RICO matter. Like, if this guy really wants to, if this is what's happened, that he's contacted them to cause them and trigger them to do that, then shame on him. And let's work forward and let's continue. And then, probably, she'll take the high road and put it to the side and focus on selling the house. But if they insist on it, well, maybe we'll suspend the listing 6 months before anybody can list it. And then we'll go and make our requisite complaints to RICO and wherever else we need to, right? We don't need this in our business whatsoever. So, but thank you for sharing. Yeah. A couple updates on the government relations. Yes.
Sorry, just before you continue, it just popped in. If you do get that angry callback from a boxed out realtor, is there
What
something?
is a boxed out?
Boxed out, that's not Jason's term for it, but a boxed out realtor.
Okay.
Is there something specific that you can say to let them know that will be another, calling our new client will present a RICO issue for them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This, you're inducing a breach of a contract. That's the actual technical. Do you need something? Sorry.
I see that.
You don't have to wait, unfortunately. Thanks.
It's so that the legal term is called inducing a breach of a contract in these cases. So that becomes, yes, a RICO complaint because it's violating TRESA and the act that you cannot contact a client that's under contract with another brokerage. It's like, if you want to rank some of the most serious violations you could do, this is near the top of that list, right? Just do not do that. And then it becomes a legal matter because we're talking now contract, a brokerage contract with the seller. And this guy's interfering in that contract. It's kind of like, say, I'll give you an example. I'm buying a car. And so Anita's the car dealership. And I go to Anita and she's selling, pick your poison, Mercedes Benzes, okay? Or no, let's go. I'm in my 50s. So I want to buy a Ferrari, midlife crisis, Ferrari. But there's another Ferrari dealership. But I come to Anita and we have a great experience and I buy the Ferrari with Anita. But I had walked into the other Ferrari guy and, talked about buying one from there. He finds out I buy one from Anita. That'd be like that dealership trying to now sabotage my contract with Anita, right? Think of any other instance in business where that happens, how bad that is.
Yeah, that's bad.
Right? And that's what they're doing. And people think that real estate, they can get away with this kind of stuff, right? Not with us, not with you. So thank you again for sharing. Was there any other questions in the chat?
He basically follows up with, should we be emailing or texting them that specific verbiage after the call to kind of just get it in writing?
Yeah, and copy your manager, Chris Lydham, our broker record, and their manager, if you can get their manager's email, right? Don't just leave it in a vacuum. Put it out there to a lot of people that can see that, because that's the brokerage may not know that person's operating like that. If we don't know as managers or brokers, then we can't help the situation. We can't educate some people. I dare say if this is what's happening with this guy, he's 19 years in the business at least or more, he knows the rules. If you're brand new, you may not know the nuances of what you can and can't do. So you take that as a learning opportunity to educate somebody, right? Okay. On a government relations front, we had a couple of wins this week provincially. So remember I talked about the NOCs, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, the notice of special interest that's placed on a property when you buy one of those furnace things or air conditioning units or hot water tanks, solar arrays, those types of things, or somebody knocks on your door. So the legislature is now going to be passing this as being illegal. So there's no longer going to be, once it passes, it hasn't passed yet, but it's going to go on the legislature for, and my understanding is it has unanimous consent in the legislature. Every party will support it, which is great. So until that happens, though, we still have to be mindful that we could be going to situations where there are these types of punitive rental agreements. So those are the ones where, the guy knocks on the door and they sell you this lease of a furnace and it's over 15 years and the amount turns out to be 15 grand when you could buy your brand new furnace for 3, 4, 5, right? But if you sell in the middle or the meantime, then there's the buyout of it, right? They punitively hit you with the buyout cost for that. So those are disappearing, which is great. The other big announcement this week was the cooling off period. So everybody knows that when you buy pre-construction condos, there's a, how many days? 10-day cooling off period. Now in British Columbia, the powers that be, the intelligentsia there thought it would be a cool idea to introduce cooling off periods into residential resale. Well, we knew about that, and I've been fighting and pushing back on that for years. And, thankfully I can report today that they've backed off from the residential real estate side, but they are now going to do a 10-day cooling off period for pre-con freehold. So if you buy a townhouse, a semi or detached, pre-con, not resell what we do, pre-con. Well, we do pre-con, of course,
Yeah.
right? In the freehold world, they are now going to introduce a 10-day cooling off period. So we think that's a big win for us in the resale sector. And I think it's a win for the pre-con world too. Who's done pre-con here in our, pretty much everybody? Yeah. You're looking at a contract that can be 10, 15 pages long compared to our 4-page agreement per sale that we use to standardize forms with the RIA. And let's be honest, the contract you get with the seller is most beneficial to who? The builder seller, not us as the client. So great that the buyer is able to then take that contract for 10 days and have it reviewed by a lawyer. So I think it's a good win for us as consumers and the sector at large. So those are two big things. Now going forward, just so that you know, I start actually next week or 2 weeks on phase 3 advocacy for Tressa. And we're trying to get specialized designations into the act, meaning that maybe you're a specialist in commercial real estate, or you sell recreational type properties, cottages or hobby farms, things like that, or condos like you. So we're looking at introducing that. We're looking at trying to advocate for an ombudsman that is the watchdog of RICO. So if you think of the police forces have the special investigations unit that watch the police and what they do. So we're looking to see if we can get somebody to watch RICO. And that would be it's called an ombudsman. They sit as an independent officer in the legislature at Queen's Park, which, we need one, basically. We're a large industry and a lot of sectors have ombudsmen. We just haven't had one. So we're going to be advocating for that. And we're also advocating for closing these loophole exemptions that exist right now for people that are not licensed to trade in real estate / example would be auctioneers, right? So auctioneers do not have to have a real estate license. They're exempt from the act. And so consumers don't realize that they're dealing with an entity that doesn't have perhaps insurance like we do, don't have a code of ethics like we do, don't have an act like we do, right? So that's our work going forward. So it's never ending. We're always trying to push forward the profession professionally. So, to me, that's I love doing stuff like that. But today we're doing, we're already 25 minutes into this, right? So sorry about that. We're going to do negotiations. As I said, today is like a preliminary for next week. So we're just going to talk some high level stuff with you. So nothing deep, some deep stuff, but nothing like I've done in the past with you. That's next week. We're going to have a lot of fun next week. But I brought out for the first time a study, and I've written it on the board. Let me see how I look here. So this is from Columbia Business School. It's a big business school in the United States. I stumbled upon this survey just recently, and I thought I'm going to incorporate this into our program because it's specifically dealing with negotiations. And in this study, the actual topic was to negotiate the sale of a gas station. So it's a real estate type of transaction study that they looked at. And we actually have a realtor in our brokerage here in the West that specializes in selling gas stations. And so he's done a number of those, which is kind of fascinating. There's so much involved in selling a gas station. There's environmental issues. Of course, there's the gas itself issues. You're aligning with like a franchise, a Petro or what Shell. And then you've got the grocery back end, and how do you itemize all that? So it's a very complicated and complex situation. But in this study, it was by a professor named Adam Galinsky, is the name of the professor at Columbia. They put grad students into 3 groups for this study. So there was first group was called a control group. So whenever you do a study, pharmaceutical companies do this all the time, right? So if they're coming out with a new pill to solve whatever they're trying to, I'm not going to say that. I have my opinions on that, but I will not share them with you. Offline I might do that, but anyhow, let's just say it's a make you happy pill that they're coming out with. We need some happiness in this world. Would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what they do is they go through testing and whatnot. And so one of the test groups is a control group, and they give them what's called a placebo, right? Everybody's heard that term? So it's basically, it could be just a Tic Tac they're giving them, right? Essentially, okay? And then they'll have the other groups that are given different, generally doses, right? And at different intervals, so they can get this longitudinal study to find out what the effects are, or they call it efficacy in the study. So in this study, it was 3 groups. So they called the first group the control group. The second group was called the empathy group. Everybody know what empathy is, right? It's like how I feel about you, right? My ability to have intrapersonal skills with you. It's me putting myself in your shoes, if you look at it that way, okay? And then there's the perspective group, which is it's a kind of more IQ type of thing, right? The thinking, the logical, the rational, that kind of stuff, right? So we got these 3 groups. And so in the first group, I'm going to use the blue because Matt says this is a better one for me to use. In the first group, the control group is just their task is to just negotiate the sale. So in your workbook that you've got, I'd like you to write this stuff down because it's a really fascinating end story here. That's why I'm bringing it to everybody's attention. Because quite frankly, I learned something from it. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not the omnibus study that changes and drastically everything, but it was another thing for me to think of, another perspective that I'm thinking of now. And all my years of doing negotiation training, I never thought of it through this lens. So write this down wherever you got in your book. So negotiate the sales. This is really, you think that the control group, they're working on strictly a transaction or transactional basis. That's all they care about. Are we all good with that? That's their task. That's what they're instructed to do. Just get the job done, negotiate the sale of this gas station, okay? Number 2 is the empathy group. And the empathy group was told, imagine how I should say how the other person is. Anybody know what the word would be? Imagine how the other person is. We're talking empathy. What's the big thing about empathy? There's an L. There's an F. There's an L in it though. Yes, feeling. What? It's my first time teaching this actual thing. I just, next time I won't say L, I'll say F. It starts with the F. It's more than 4 letters though. As an F. Yes. Is that what you were laughing at? Okay, I didn't get that. Things like that go over my head. My wife says that to me all the time. She's like, "Are you that dense?" I'm like, "Yep." Sometimes I'm not dense.
That's the first thing people think.
I did not even know, went over my head. So there you go. I may look smart, but sometimes no. Okay, the next group is the perspective group. And the perspective group is asked to do the same thing. Imagine something. But instead of being asked to imagine what the feeling is, they're being asked and tasked to say, what is the other person thinking? The thoughts, not the feelings, the thoughts. Okay? Now, the results of this survey are pretty amazing. Which one out of the 3 do you think was the most successful? Matt can't answer this because I already gave him the answers.
Yeah, but I got it right.
Well, you guessed,
Yeah.
but he got it right.
Yeah.
He's right. I mean, you have a 1/3
Jason
chance.
says number 2.
So Jason
says empathy.
okay, all right. Anybody else want to give a guess? Empathy?
Hardik says perspective.
Okay, excellent. Let's hear your, come on, you guys can't be sitting on the fences, guys, you gotta make a choice.
First one.
First one for control, okay. 2, has anybody else said, is anybody else at home wants this answer? Okay, we're not gonna come after anybody at home. Like everybody in the audience here said, yes, we know where you live, we can check that out, but we're not gonna go, say why. Just throw it in, just a guess then. No, they're still chickening? Okay. So it's actually whoever chose perspective is correct. And so Matt did guess right, but you were flip-flopping between 1 and 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll let you know I guessed 2. I was the empathy side of things, right? That's where I felt it was gonna fall out. But in this study, and it doesn't mean, like I said before, that this study now eliminates everything else and all of it. It's just giving you another perspective of how to do things. And so me, I will have this extra little layer of thinking, right? So in the control group, I believe it was, let me just double check yes, I see that. Anybody want to guess how successful the control group was in getting a deal done? Like 50%, 70%, 10%? What do you think their success ratio was in the control group? All their folks said getting a deal done.
25%.
25%, okay. 20, okay. No other guesses? Nobody in the studio audience wants to?
Arctic says 25%.
Okay, so you guys are close. Close. It's 39% in this study was successfully able to negotiate the sale of this gas station. The second one is the empathy group. Anybody want to give us the empathy success ratio? 10%, okay. Matt, what's your number?
Arctic says 25 again for that.
25 again, okay.
30.
30, okay. Keep going up. It's a little higher. 50. So that's the first number.
59.
59, lower. I feel like Bob Barker.
55.
54% it says in the study. Let me just verify. Yeah, 54% is what that one says. And in the control and the perspective group,
68.
68 for you. That's pretty good. In Price is Right, you got to be below, right? So when you're on the, you're guessing the price to get up on the stage. If you're over, you can't go. But if you're under, you have a chance. So you still have a chance.
Okay.
Okay, so it is higher than 68. What do you think?
71.
You're still on it. You're still there. You're not out yet. So a little.
79.
And now you're out.
That's
It's,
73.
I think it's at 70. Sorry, 76.
Oh.
My bad. 76%. So 3/4 of those transactions using the perspective actually negotiated a successful real estate sale of a gas station, which is quite interesting. I would have thought it was an invert. I'm going to go forward combining both of those though, because I still think the empathy emotion side plays a very big part in residential real estate. So I want to make that distinction. This is a commercial transaction. I'm not a commercial broker. I never sold commercial. I referred my commercial business. I operated entirely in residential real estate. But what I know as a distinction between the two is residential has much more of an emotional component than call it a rational, logical component, right? Would we all agree with that?
yes.
But what I personally learned from this former residential side is this perspective to actually try to think what that person's thinking before I go into the negotiation. Does that make sense? That's what I learned from it. So actually study lessons, there's 4 of them. It says to put yourself into the thinking from that, what the other realtor's thinking. And it's, the first one is where they are coming from. Are they in a desperate situation themselves personally because they haven't sold a real estate deal in a year? Are they brand new in the business? So before you're going into these transactions, where is that person coming from? Are they experienced? Do they possibly have an ego because you see their face everywhere, including on billboards, right? Are they a realtor that gets transactions done? Is it a realtor that has a good reputation, right? So you're thinking from that perspective. The next is what is going on? What is going on in their mind? Using some of those concepts, the desperation, I'm new, I'm experienced, here's a word that I want people to learn in real estate. We talk about experienced realtors a lot, like we're experienced and we're full-time realtors, okay? Full-time realtor is on one side of the spectrum. What would be the other side? What would you call the other side? Part-time. Here's a new word for you. It's a more polite word. These are hobbyists. Hobbyist realtors. You ever heard that term before? They're hobbyists. They're only playing in the game of real estate as a hobby, right? They're only maybe doing one deal every year or two. They're not the full-time realtor. They're the surgeon that's only doing one surgery a year, not 50, right? They're the lawyer that's only trying one case, not 30, right? They're hobbyists, so you get that spectrum. What is in their mind? And if I've never heard of these people, and you can search to see what their success is in the business, then you can get this kind of perspective that they're going to come into. Because if they are a hobbyist, they could be very desperate just to get a deal done, to pay their expenses. Okay? Or they could be a hobbyist that is financially, solvent. They don't care about this. They're just, doing this as a fun thing. But again, it's a way to look at it from perspective. Number 3 is, why are they looking to make a deal? So it's, why are they looking to make a deal? Again, are they a hobbyist? Are they experienced? Is it maybe a motivation from the seller side, that the seller, their thinking is because of the situation they're put in with the seller they're working with? Or flip it, if you're the sell side, looking at it from a buyer's perspective, buyer's agent's perspective, right? So today in the sell side, only 39% of all listings on MLS sold in April. Everybody knows that, right? When you look at the statistics, I've shared with you in the first class. I think we talked about it. This is a very powerful resource. This is only 2 pages of the 27 pages. Okay, first page, last page, and if you look at the math, as I said, only 39% of all listings sold last month. So that means 61% did not sell, right? It's a perspective thing. Again, using math to say not everything does sell on MLS. The perspective is it does. If you look at the best times in real estate, up until 2007, the best ratio that ever made prior to 2007 up to was 68%. I used to track that when I sold real estate. Because everybody, again, has this perception that if you put it on MLS, the job's done. And they try to make you into a commodity again, right? Say, you're not really delivering anything because MLS is delivering it. We had a bit of a boom, would you agree, in 2007. We had a couple of these little rocket ships. If you look at the charts, 2007, we had this rocket ship, and then there was something that happened called the Ontario Fair Housing Plan that got introduced and that crashed our market. So we had the space shuttle launch straight up, and then we went right back down. But then we did that again before COVID. And then when COVID happened, we went down and we went right back up. So we've had these gyrations and these effects, okay, that have skewed some of these numbers. So there's been times where actually the ratio's gotten up to like 80-odd%. Take those out of the equation. Historically, that does not happen. Your traditional sales ratio is between 55 and 65% of MLS listings sell on MLS. We're below that right now at 39%. I don't know what we're going to see next week. We should get our numbers because June 1st is Monday. Trev usually takes 2 or 3 days, so we should probably, by the time we meet next week, have the new report out. I'm going to predict that the market sales is down probably about 15% is my guess. Last year, it might be high. Last year, if you recall, May was an absolute barn burner of a month. If you were in our business a year ago in May, the environment, the sentiment out there was fantastic, right? Everybody was great. And then something happened in June of last year. What happened? Bank of Canada stepped in and killed the market, right? And we've been kind of on this life support ever since. Now, this June, which is June the 5th, next week, okay? June the 5th next week, we're gonna have a Bank of Canada announcement. Listen, if they raise their rates, that'd be crazy. Like, might as well bury everybody, okay? So I don't think that's gonna happen, okay? If they do nothing, it just causes, I think, a little bit more apathy in the business, right? From a buyer's perspective, that they're just gonna sit on the sidelines. But if they do move the rates, I'm not gonna call for a material massive shift in like all of a sudden we're gonna go back to the races here. But I think you'll start to see a bit of confidence building from a buyer's perspective. And our spring market might actually shift on that kind of continuum curve into the summer market. So our traditional slow summer market could start to build momentum in June. If they follow up with a rate cut in July, we're going to have a spring market in July and August and September. And we might actually not have any dip. We might have our fall market just continue, right? So what's building potentially right now for you from a buyer perspective is a perfect scenario, perfect opportunity. Remember I talk about being the source and voice of information for your people? I really encourage you to get your buyers off the sidelines right now and get them qualified, because if they qualify today at the rate that they're at, right, with the stress test, and the rates go down, when they close, they're going to get the lower rate at that time. But get into the market now when there's less buyers still in the market. You still have this window of opportunity because the prices have actually gone up from the end of December to the end of April. The prices have gone up 6.5%. They don't report that number though, right? They tell you the year-over-year number, which is like a fraction of percent increase. If you actually go end of January to the end of April, it's an anomaly, but it's 12.5% is the increase in price. But the anomaly rests in this one sector of the economy was the $2+ million market in April was on fire. And so that skewed all the numbers up a bit, right? But I'm telling you, you're probably looking at 6% to 6.5% is what the average appreciation has been since the end of January. So when we were saying, and I was actually calling for when I was on Signature Live doing all the trust stuff for you guys, back in October, November, get your buyers going because they're going to benefit buying in November, December, January. They're going to be net positive, and they are. They really are. The window's still there for buyers, but those rates come down. The first one, I don't think it's material, but it's going to start. It's going to be the spark. Okay. Yes.
You mentioned that the sale percentages of listings sold has never really gone above 65, 75%.
So yeah, up until 2007, 8,
Yeah.
That was the best market we had.
Susan's wondering why. Why does it always max out at that?
It's just the rhythm of the marketplace. There's so many other variables that come into play to sell a property, which generally uses the resources the realtor brings to the table. And not everybody brings all those resources to the table. Remember my feed plan? I had all these, activities that I would do to try and sell your house. The staging, the this, that, everything else. Well, a lot of realtors don't invest in those types of techniques and platforms and stuff. They just go to the MLS and they let the MLS, take the listing and sell it or not sell it. They're not doing anything to facilitate beyond the MLS a sale. And there's a lot of cool techniques out there that exist to help that happen, more than it was when I was trading in real estate. There's so many other things that you could use, right? So it's those types of things, because my sales ratio was in the high 90s, right? And if you look at top realtors, they're in the high 90s of selling their listings. They have that ratio. Again, I would walk away. I think I shared this with you last week or the week before, that if the value of the house was $900,000, but they wanted $1,100,000, I wouldn't take that listing. It's not what I call a bona fide listing, right?
So basically, what's causing it to skew the percentage? Because all properties sell once they hit the right price. So are the numbers being skewed by the fact that properties are just being cancel relisted, or some kind of other reason?
Great question. And so I asked that question years ago at an event at Trev they used to do statistic courses at Shrub. They may still do that, I don't know, but I asked that very question, and their answer essentially was because the tendency and habit has always been cancel, relist, and cancel, relist, that because there's such a longitudinal history to that yeah, there might be an anomaly from time to time, but because it's a fairly stable thing that happens all the time in our business, that the ratios are not going to be dramatically affected was their response, which makes sense to me, right? So, you know, cancel relists are not something that just happened in the last year, 2, 5 years. We did that when I was selling real estate. I mean, we're talking about when I sold, you're 120, 160 days to sell a property on average. You know, today's realtor that, you know, we've come in the business since 2017, it's 20 days you're selling a property, and that includes your condition periods. Like, we were just getting warmed up at 20 days when I was selling real estate, you know, honestly. And the way that the business is done today, compressing the time period because of all the technology you guys have at your fingertips has helped that. But we did these cancel realists as well, you know, in our business. Did I answer the question? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a number 4. Number 4 is can you align? So it's can you align their interests with yours? So what would their interests be? Well, if they're a hobbyist realtor, they probably want to get this deal done because that's their only deal they're going to have this year, right? Or, you know, maybe you're able to solicit or to uncover that the sellers bought a property. And so their interest is they have to sell that property. And so, you know, motivation's very high on their side. So those were the study lessons for that. Was that helpful? That was a pretty good study, right? I mean, again, my takeaway, yes, this stuff here, but my takeaway is really right here, is that I'm going to look at it from that lens, the combined lens for residential, not for commercial. Next week, when we're going to do our case studies with Emilio, we're going to be leveraging and leaning upon Harvard. So Emilio has gone to Harvard multiple times over the years for a week, for 2 weeks to do courses in negotiations at a high level in the Harvard Business School, okay? And so I've subscribed in the past when I was at university, the Harvard Business Review. It's a very good publication through their MBA programs. They do a lot of case studies and studies in business. And so I just wanted to get your kind of mind and feet wet a little bit for what we're going to go into next week from the Harvard side, to do a little bit of the foundational things that Emilio will be talking about. Because he doesn't bring this up, but I want you just to be aware of that so that when you come in next week, you're prepared for it. So Harvard has, they're called the Harvard Principles of Negotiation. They're not the rules, right? So they're principles. And Harvard distinguishes rules from principles. So I'd write this stuff down. It's really cool too. So principles versus rules. A principle is flexible. A rule is strict. Don't break the rules or there's consequences. Versus, hey, here's what you could do. You could use empathy and perspective and be flexible in that model, as opposed to, no, you could only do empathy, or you could only do perspective, or you can only do just negotiate the sale, right? So you're flexible. 2, principles are organic versus rules are linear. Organic, what would you say is organic? What comes to mind when I say the word organic? Food. That says food.
It's organic.
That's what I was thinking.
That says food.
Natural.
Like natural.
Natural. Like it's evolutionary. It can evolve, right? It's organic. There's no set predetermined outcome. It's organic. And yes, it's food. Love it. Linear is, of course, it's point A, point B. Got it? Point A, point B, and you can't deviate. Right? Organics, I'll give you an example of real life. It's not a food example, just for Matt's edification. If I was to say to you, I'd like for us to start today at 30 Eglinton Avenue West in Mississauga. And I'd like for each of you to drive to Mobile, Alabama. Well, first of all, some of you are like, what the hell is that place? It's in the state of Alabama, in the United States. And sorry, it's the state of Alabama, and the city is called Mobile. It's actually a very popular city in Alabama. A linear way of doing it with rules would be for me to say, Anita, here's how you have to go. Well, you're going to come out of our parking lot, you're going to turn right, you're going to go on the 403, you're going to go on the QEW, you're going to cross the Peace Bridge, you're going to go on this interstate. Blah, blah. I give you a very linear route versus the organic is I come out of here, I'm like, I want to go to square one first. So I hang out at square one. And instead of going on the 403, I drive down to the lakeshore and I drive along lakeshore and then I go here. You know what I'm saying? It's organic. I am not following a set predetermined rules. So that's what, and it's brilliant when you think about it from the perspective of organic, not food organic, right? Versus linear. The last one, you can be creative versus you're sterile. You know what sterile is, right? Sterile. Give me a food analogy, Matt. I'm waiting for it.
Sterile
Yeah.
food, I have no idea.
Your color.
Like preservatives, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So sterile.
Pickle.
Pickles.
Right. Okay. So creative is you can come up with this great map and plan to get to Mobile, Alabama. Like you can stop maybe in Tennessee and to go to the Grand Ole Opry, or you can go to, hey, let's go to New York. Let's go see Broadway show, right? Versus sterile, I'm just driving on this route and I'm not even looking out. I'm focused here. That's sterile. Okay, very cool. And so what they do is they have these 4
I'd
principles.
like to add one more.
Sure. Another example. Okay.
That one would be interesting, principles would be interesting, while rules will be boring.
Interesting versus boring. So
If somebody
I
is
could call
explaining
Harvard
it,
and say we'd like to add a 4th. I like it. So you're saying interesting versus boring.
That I think analogy, it goes with
I love it.
learning habits as well.
I love it.
Like if it's just a rule, less people follow. If it's a principle, more people can follow because it's interesting.
100%. 100%. So you're going to learn about the principles of negotiation next week in case studies. And so we're not going to be stuck here. I'm giving you kind of like an advanced kind of insight, because it'll help you next week in the case studies to think this way, not the other way. Okay. Where are we here? The Harvard. So the principles. So we got separate person. I'm going to go here in my blue. Separate person. Person from, I think it's from issue. So what does that mean? That means when I'm negotiating with Anita, I may have a relationship with Anita already. Might have a high good relationship, meaning I like her because we've done deals together before, or we've had interactions in the office where we like each other. Okay. Or I might have a low dislike. So I'm pretty sure the guy you interacted with last night, you probably are here on that ratio, right? But you want to separate the person from the issue. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 2, interest focused. So interest focus. What are our interests? Interest, not position focused. Position, think of like a word like anchor. Like you're stuck in a position. You're not moving, you're rigid, you're anchored to that position. Versus the interest. What's our interest here? Well, interest here is to help facilitate transaction between our clients, right? That's our interest, not the position. Number 3 is develop criteria that a solution must fulfill. Develop criteria that a solution might fulfill. So let's, for instance, say the seller absolutely needs to have their closing on July 15th. I'm just arbitrarily picking a date out. Well, if that's the biggest solution right now that they need because they bought something, and if they can't close this, then they can't transfer their equity over, meaning they have to go get a bridge finance loan. That's an interesting bit of information that you can try to glean from. So you're trying to create the criteria for a solution. Well, on the buying side, maybe my client as a buyer is living in mom and dad's basement. So there is flexibility there from the buying side that we can accommodate, but that's going to come at a solution for us. You wanted 900, but for this solution to present itself for you, we'd like to go at 890 or 890. I'm just, giving it a broad example, but hopefully the concept sticks with that, right? So you have a solution for the criteria, right? The criteria for the solution. Number 4, create different options to choose from. So options to choose from. Options to choose from. Don't be singular in your options, because those are called ultimatums, right? Who likes ultimatums? That's the take that or leave that. Nobody wants to be put in that kind of situation, right? This is a negotiation matrix that Harvard's come up with as well. There's you, and in our case, we're going to call it another realtor. Harvard will say you and whatever industry, the other insurance broker, the other whatever, okay? But this is us. So you can win and the other realtor can lose. What does that look like? What does that even mean? You don't have to answer, but just think about that. What does win-lose mean for you and the other realtor? It's like, I'll say it's like a hockey game. Last night, yay, Edmonton Oilers won. They tied up series 2-2, I think. They won, the other team lost. That's what you're thinking about in this. You win, they lose. If you're thinking it from the relationship side, you are actually probably in a dislike situation with that realtor, and you're winning with that realtor, and they're losing, okay? You lose, they win. What does that look like for you? If you're on the listing side, you wanted to get 900 and you got 880 for your seller. Did you lose and they won? That's what we're talking about. There's the compromise, which is a hybrid of both scenarios, the compromise. That's where you'll hear these things called split the difference. You ever heard that term before? Split the difference, right? So we're at, you're at 900, I'm at 880. Well, let's split the difference. What's splitting the difference there? 890. That's the compromise. Then there's lose-lose. We just don't come to any kind of conclusion. We don't get anything done. Then there's the win-win, where both parties feel like they've won one. Now you're going to hear Emilio's opinion on win-win. He's not a big fan of win-wins. I kind of am. That's great. Different opinions are important. Win-win, the way he'll describe win-win, and he'll use an analogy. What's the analogy he uses there, Matt, again? It's about the orange. Remember, it's the orange peel. You have an orange, and there's one orange. The father wills it to his two sons. He has two sons, and there's only one orange. And so the story that I'm not going to tell actually the story. I'll let him tell it. But it's how do you divvy up the orange and get a win-win? It's possible. He's going to share with you how that's even possible. And it's not actually cutting it in half. If that's what you're thinking. Okay, that's not the answer. He'll amaze you with the answer. I use a pumpkin analogy actually, and I'll give you my story after he gives you his one. He does an orange, I do a pumpkin. because I have 3 options. He has 2 in his, sorry, I have 3, I have an extra one, okay? So this hopefully will prepare you for next week for what we're gonna do. It is gonna be fun. Don't be stressed about, your, doing, case studies and stuff like that. It's meant to be fun and challenging, and we're gonna use some real estate actual examples for you to do in case studies, okay? And I said it'd be an hour. I'm already over an hour. We have you open up the workbook. Can you go to, before you even open the workbook, just to my first page of my old course? Thank you. Any questions on that? No? Okay. And that's my favorite, tied for favorite quote. Tied for favorite quote. Yeah, you guys want to take pictures? So I'll get out of the way of the board. The blue works a lot better, eh? Than the
Yeah,
red.
doesn't it? Yeah, it's more legible.
Everybody at home can see the board? Fine.
Yeah, it looks great on my end, so they have bigger screens.
Right. Post. So one of my absolute favorite quotes is this one. Let us never negotiate a fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. John F. Kennedy. Does everybody know who John F. Kennedy was? Yes, no, maybe so. John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States back in the 60s. Sadly, was assassinated. And as a tidbit history story, Matt's laughing. What are you going? What are we?
No, continue.
Yes. So my last name is Kennelly, right? So Kennelly, right? My last name, my father's ancestors are Irish, from Ireland. And we're actually from Ireland, like 7, 8 generations ago, related to John F. Kennedy's family on his mother's side, the actual Fitzgerald side. And my great uncle was the mayor of Chicago back in the 40s and 50s and was very close to the Kennedy family. So I'm a massive fan of the Kennedy. I read whatever I can about them. But this quote, he came up with this quote, where this quote came out of what was called the Cuban Missile Crisis. Does anybody know historically what that was all about? The Russians had put in nuclear missiles in Cuban soil. The Americans had found out about it through, they had these flights from these U-2 spy planes, and they found these sites, which was, it shifted the balance, the strategic balance for nuclear deterrence massively, because they could strike America quickly, right? And so for 13 days, the world, before I was born, 13 days, the world was on the brink of a potential nuclear war. And some of the most high-level negotiations in the history of our planet, because imagine now, nuclear bombs are game changers, right? You're not talking conventional war. You're talking a bomb can eradicate an entire city, one bomb, okay? And the yields in the 60s were 10 times, 100 times more than they were during the Second World War when Hiroshima and Nagasaki got hit. Today, it's next level, like the whole world would just be obliterated. But for 13 days, very high-level negotiations were occurring between the Russians and the Americans. And he created this thing called XCOM at the White House to be a strategic executive committee to try to negotiate and scale down this life-threatening, world-threatening event. And people were terrified. And he said, let's not be afraid to negotiate. Like, let's not negotiate a fear. So let's not go to the table, terrified to have to deal with Nikita Khrushchev, who was the Russian counterpart leader. But let us never fear to negotiate. We got to come to the table. Yes, the stakes are as high as they're ever going to be. We're not talking about selling a house, buying a car, negotiating that. We're talking about global annihilation, right? And he took the lead. He was a young president, the youngest president at the time. And at the 13-day mark, and in between, there was lots of oops, we could have had a incident, and that could have been, a lot of us would never have been born, put it that way, okay? He was able to steer and navigate the world, along with Nikita Khrushchev, away from the precipice of nuclear annihilation, which is so fascinating, right? So how does that relate to us? Our little simple, we go negotiate houses, compared to that. Well, it is. We tend to fear to negotiate with the other realtor. Remember I told you before, we like to just email offers out? We don't want to go face to face. We want to see anybody because we are terrified. Oh my God, what if I say something wrong? What if I make a mistake? What if the other realtor is better, smarter, faster, blah, blah, blah. And so you let that fear prevent you from going face to face. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to get an opportunity every time to go face to face. But if you're on the buying side, it's worth asking. Worth asking to say, hey, would it be Matt, would it be okay if I presented my offer to you and your seller in person? I get it. A lot of these hobbyists that are out there, they don't want you to do that. And some of the top agents that are so busy, they don't want you to do that. But there's going to be some that will. Please avail yourself of that opportunity to get in front of another realtor. You will learn some of the best negotiating tactics and strategies ever being face to face. Okay, that's the purpose of that one. So the next slide would be, sorry, yeah, that one there. So traits of a good negotiator. These are traits that I've come up with over time. And I use a couple storylines here for that. But so the first one is you're emotionally stoic, calm and collected. In brackets, I have the word few good men. Has everybody ever seen that movie, A Few Good Men? Jack Nicholson's in it, Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, Kevin Costner. It's a massive Hollywood movie. Highly, highly recommended. If you've ever seen the TV series The West Wing, the creator of The West Wing also did the movie A Few Good Men. And it's a courtroom type of drama, military related. And in this movie, Tom Cruise is the lead lawyer on behalf of the defendants. And before they go into court, he has this little huddle with his team, which is Demi Moore, and I always forget the other lawyer, but he's a famous actor too. And he preps them before they go in. He says, listen, we got to remain emotionally calm, stoic. Do not get excited. Do not go and blurt something out. So stay stone cold. Play like you're playing poker. Like, yeah, you got dealt 2 aces, but don't go get so giddy that you got 2 aces that they know that you've got a really good hand. Pretend like you've got, a 2 and a 5 or a 2 and a 7, like crap hand, right? Why? Because you don't want to give any signals to the other side. So in this movie, he gives that advice, that direction. They go in, and one of the witnesses on the witness stand, it's the doctor, this expert witness doctor, talking about the autopsy report. And Demi Moore's character gets up and objects, and the judge says overruled, right? Which means sit down. Yes. This is, we're going. And she gets up again. And she's a little bit more for it. I object. No, objection noted. Overruled. Testimony keeps going. Then she gets up and goes, I object strenuously. And the judge is like, listen, he is the expert witness. Your objection's overruled. Please sit down. So she's overreacted to whatever he's saying. Now, what he's saying was not helpful to the client, that they're defending. But what did she do by doing that? She made it like, oh my God, we're terrified of what the expert witness is saying. So that when they were going to do the cross-examination of that guy, the jury has already felt like, oh, this witness has damaged the case. So think about what you could damage in a resale environment or a real estate environment, right? You want $1 million and the offer comes in at $1,025,000, right? It's more than what you want. If you get all giddy and excited about that, wow, it's amazing. Hey, hang on a second. There could have been another $10,000 or $15,000 there. Let's play that game out. Let's figure that out. Or they come in at $900,000, right? How many buyers have said to you, I just want to test the waters, give it a shot, see what they say, right? Have you had buyers like that? They might go to the $1 million, but let's just test the market out. Well, if your seller sits there and goes, ah, crap. What if you just done? You didn't stay calm, stoic. You potentially ruined an opportunity. So you keep calm. What's the big sayings there? Keep calm and move on or something, right? Those things you see.
Yes,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Number 2, You have situational awareness. You really got to be dialed into the situation. You got to be looking at the big picture and the small picture. The big picture is looking down from your airplane at 40,000 feet. Okay? You can't even see buildings at 40,000 feet, but you know, that's what your perspective you got to have. Small view is you're on the ground floor. Like this building here is massive, right? Because you're immersed in that environment at the ground level versus at 40. So you got to switch back and forth and switch situational awareness. Find allies and common ground. Always going to be allies. Last night, your story, I was thinking hard about this when you're telling me a story. The wife was your ally. She wanted to sign. She worked the wife. You found common ground. You removed the obstacle, which last night was, oh, I got to call this guy. We got a problem there. We're going to deal with it. But you got the ally, the wife, and you move forward. Make sense? Yeah. Allow things sometimes to just unfold. Get out of the way. Let people have this then conversation, right? So maybe the offers come in, it's 900,000. At least they didn't go and blow it. You've asked the other realtor to leave. And now it's you and your clients, your sellers. Let the sellers sometimes have that conversation. Get out of the way. Let it unfold, right? Ability to connect and be trusted a relationship. This is what you guys are great at. That's why you're in our business, right? Be persistent, be patient, use creativity. This is the stuff here, right? This is this stuff here. It's amazing, actually, the word persistent. Here's the perspective of persistent. Recognize and adapt to nonverbal cues. What are nonverbal cues? What would be an example of a nonverbal cue?
Body language.
Body language, exactly, right? So if I'm at the table negotiating something and I'm sitting like this, I'm not happy, I guess, right? I'm like, get me out of here. Get this person away from me, right? Like, I am not happy. I'm like this. Well, I'm interested. Well, tell me more. Happy, right? If I'm aggressive, I'm going like this. Right? So, eyes, the window to the soul. Keep your focus on people's eyes. See what they're like. The other part of it, the peripheral vision, but you want to dial into the. I always look here too, right? Look into the jugular if you can. Like if somebody's wearing like this, then you can't really see it, but look to see. You can see sometimes when people's blood pressure goes up, you can see it. Sometimes you can see veins in their head, and you can see perspiration.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you can see some people are fidgety. Those are nonverbal cues. Lots of them that you can be picking up on. They're telling a story without them verbally telling you a story. Okay. There's great videos, by the way. You can watch videos on YouTube from FBI profilers and how they watch and they do interviews with people that they are interviewing that have killed people. They know they've killed them. They've got DNA evidence. They got whatever it is, and they're trying to get the person to confess. Watch how they break people down using nonverbal cues. It's fascinating stuff. Never take anything personal. Again, last night, don't take that personally. Nothing to do with you. That's a jerk that did that to her, right? So separate, again, what we got here, separate person from issue. Let's not take it personal. Life's too short to take it personal. I know our natural proclivity is to do that sometimes. Stay angry, stay upset for 5 or 10 minutes if you can, and then let it go. There's no benefit in having that linger on and stick to you, okay? You don't have to be a martyr. Let it go. Learn from past experiences, positive and negative ones. You had both last night, positive and negative, roll of the one. She's going to learn, we're going to learn. We all learn from that story now, right? And you're willing to walk away. That's called the BATNA. You're going to learn about that next week. It's a little bit in your workbook, the real workbook part, which stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreements. Basically, what's your red line? What's your walk away point, right? When all else has failed, we're heading out the door. That's the BATNA. Okay. I think we can go to the main course now, Matt.
There was this, there was
No.
that.
Oh, that, okay, yeah, so who are you negotiating with? You got seller, buyer, other realtors, yourself, and there's actually a fourth, which I would say is third party. That could be your mom and dad. That could be somebody else that influences it. That's who you're really negotiating with, okay? All right, so the main course, and we're an hour and 15 minutes into this thing. Yippee. Okay. Is this helpful though, this kind of stuff? You like this?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, so where are we here? Sam's general principles. Harvard principles, Sam principles. So here we go. So number one, listen. Be excellent at listening, it says. So what I would say is the word listen is hearing. And my initial response to that first thing would be God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So we should be listening twice as much as we're speaking. So that is a standalone must for everybody. Let's listen twice as much as we can do. Observe. We just went through the posture, the nonverbal cue stuff. So try to observe stuff like that. Number 2, inclusive selling. That's using this principle model right here, not the rules-based model. Always be present, scenarios of pros and cons. I taught you this actually last week or the week before. That's the Benjamin Franklin close. Remember the pros and cons? Remember that? Was that last week or 2 weeks ago? You know, you put the pro, it'd be like this. Pros for doing something and cons for doing something. That's your Ben Franklin close. Let's go to the advanced version one there, Matt. Next page, I think it is. Yeah, so you've got advanced version, repeat, approve, build a bridge. That's the RAB formula in negotiating. So repeat the concern, get approval for it, and then build some kind of bridge. And it says here, isolate. And to me, when I see the word isolate in this advanced version of the RAB, in psychology, there's this thing that, you know, when a patient presents themselves to a clinical psychologist or doctor, let's go on the personality side. So in personality psychology, when you go to a clinical personality psychology, by the way, does everybody know what the word personality means? It's a Greek word, from a Greek word. Does anybody know what personality means? It's fascinating, actually. It means mask. That's the root word for personality. So when people talk about, oh, their personality is, automatically think there's a mask. And all of us have multiple masks. Okay, our personality is not 100% stable in every environmental situation we're in. Okay, for instance, you know, you could be a real hard-nosed, transactional style person, right? Like you're just all about business, and that's the mask you typically wear. But are you going to be that person? God forbid you had to go to somebody's funeral. You think there's a different mask you might put on for that? Or you just had a child born, right? You welcomed a new life into the world. It's a different experience, right? So it's a different mask. So that's what personality stands for. So in this version here, when you're looking for isolating, I say that you're looking for the thing behind the thing, which is the mask. What's behind the mask? What's really there? This is why, you know, psychologists have patients for a long time, because there's so many layers of masks sometimes for people that need clinical help. It's like peeling an onion in a way, right? Trying to get to the center of the onion. But in our case, we're not dealing with, you know, an onion. We're not dealing with somebody that needs cognitive clinical therapy here, where, you know, 1 or 2 masks maybe we have to get beyond. And typically the ones that we're getting beyond, we've already talked about the 2 big things we're always dealing with is price of the house and your feet, right? Those are the masks you got to get isolated and removed from, right? And then any types of things here with dealing with other realtors, right? There's the BATNA negotiation diagram. We're going to do that. Is that in your workbook? That's in the workbooks, right? That little diagram? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be doing some BATNA stuff next week. So kind of read up. If you kind of scroll each page here for us, Matt.
Next one?
Yeah, because it's going to go, keep going. Yes, okay, so this stuff here is the art of negotiation. This is the certified negotiation expert designation stuff that they pulled this from, CNE. Everybody's heard about that designation, right? There's a PNE. Anyways, this stuff here, just have a kind of overview read of this to come prepared as well for next week, because we're going to be using some of this content next week in our case studies. And Matt, just keep going. I think that's I don't really have anything on commentary.
Goes into strategic planning.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of that stuff,
You got it.
offer acceptance, BATNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the end.
And this is the end. And so it's actually, you see it there, it's a CNE, Certified Negotiation Expert. In fact, the lady that was on our signature live yesterday, Susie Cubbins, she was the lady that used to facilitate the CNE program in Canada. I'm not sure if she still does or not, but that's my content for you as a preparatory class for next week. Hopefully, there's a lot that you glean from today. Negotiations is fun if you have the right mindset for it. If you go in with the wrong mindset that's motivated by fear, I know that's what the big motivator here is for a lot of you, right? You're afraid to do this stuff. Just shed that fear and take a leap of faith. You will become a much better realtor and have a much more successful career by doing that. That's all I have for you, unless there's questions from anybody here or at home. Happy to.
There was one I accidentally missed from
Okay.
Susan. She was speaking about when you're trying to get a buyer's rep signed, about delaying, after you've shown them the house. Like, I'm assuming delaying getting the buyer rep signed, like delaying, that initial paperwork.
Okay. So it's a lot easier under Tressa. So December 1st, RICO introduced the RICO Information Guide. So we're all familiar with that. It's that 12, 13-page document. And that document is mandatory to be sent the moment you start to provide a service or assistance. That's the two words in the act. Write those words down. The moment you provide service or assistance in a trade in real estate, that RICO Information Guide has got to be sent and explained. There's no requirement to get it signed. If you do get it signed, great. I mean, I advocate you get it signed, but you got to send it and explain it. Okay. Why would you not then, at that moment, because you have to do this now. Realtors that are not doing that are in violation of the act, big time. Why would you not then include your buyer representation conversation with them at the same time? Okay. There's programs people are now selling that are video programs on how to get the RICO Information Guide sent out. So people are actually producing this and selling this as a monetized type of thing. In the past, and actually even today, for buyer representation agreements, the legislation says that at the earliest practical opportunity, but before an offer is signed and submitted, you need to have them in a contract, a buyer representation agreement, right? If they're SRP, that's different. You can't even work with an SRP as a buyer, right? But it's at the earliest practical opportunity, which would be when you send the RICO Information Guide. But before an offer is signed and submitted, you have to have the buyer rep signed. Now, I know a lot of realtors, very successful ones, that their business practice and strategy is not to get a buyer representation agreement signed until that time that they're going to do the offer. And that's fine as far as what their business model is. It's not how I operate. I chose not to do that after I worked with somebody and showed them 40 to 50 homes. And it was in 1996 or 97. It was, quite frankly, it was July 1st, Canada Day long weekend. I was up at our family cottage, which is 4 hours north. So it's not, I'm not in Muskoka or anything like that. It's further north. And this quote unquote client, but he wasn't, because I wasn't in any contract with them. A listing had hit the market and he wanted to see it. This was on a Saturday I got the call. Well, I left the night before. We had a big family function on the Sunday, and then Monday was the holiday. Yeah? And I rationalized, okay, where this is exactly where this guy wants to be, blah, 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 lines everything up, okay? All right, I'll come down. I'll leave early, I'll come down, I'll book the appointment, I'll meet you at the house at 12 o'clock, which meant I left at like 5 a.m., right, to get down, right? So I go and show the property, and it's like neon lights. Everything's perfect. This is going to be great. In my mind, I'm thinking this is fantastic, wonderful.
yeah, I'm gonna miss this weekend with all my, relatives and stuff, but I'm doing a transaction. Fantastic. The buyer says to me, listen, it's great. I'm gonna go to Tim's. I'm gonna think about it for an hour or two, and I'll give you a call. Okay, I'll go to the office and start preparing the offer. Now, back then, we didn't have, these web form things that you guys had. We had secretaries that typewriter stuff in, okay? Typewriter. So I had the secretary start working with the typewriter, putting together your stuff. About 2 hours later, I reached out, so he had called me, so I reached out to him. Hey, listen, just wanted to follow up on where we're at the office, and he knows where the office is because I met him at the office to go through my whole presentation. And looking forward to having you come over. We get this moving forward. You're going to be the proud new owner of this property. He says, "Oh my God, I was so excited, I couldn't contain myself. I called the seller's realtor." I was like, "What?" I called the listing agent, and I've just signed the offer with him. You did what? You signed the offer with the listing agent? Yeah, aren't you so happy and excited for me? Well, you have two ways to approach this. You blow up, right? Or you take the higher road. I took the higher road. So listen, you know that this industry is not salaried industry. This is, completely commission based. And, I changed my whole weekend schedule to come down here, and we've seen 40, 45, 50 houses already. Right? But I changed everything. I came down to show you the property. And I'm shocked that you would do this. What would ever possess you to do that? It is done. Can't change that. I wish you all the best. But you really shouldn't have done that to me. You shouldn't have taken me away from my family, because I'll never get that back. For you to do that, but all the best to you. That was it. My decision, firmly made, never again to work with somebody that wouldn't sign a buyer representation agreement. Never again would I trust anybody and work without my safety net called a contract, a buyer representation agreement. And from that day on in my career, that was in like 1996, my last year selling was 2006. For the next 10 years, I would not work with anybody that didn't sign the buyer agency contract. And it only happened to me once where a client refused, because I didn't share this with you. I did what's called my Let's Make a Deal offer. Remember the Let's Make a Deal TV show back in the day, Monty Hall? Or you guys are too young for that, eh? There's a new version of it. There's a new version of Let's Make a Deal. You go into the audience, you dress up in a costume, you could be a fireman, a cop, a cat or something, and they pick you out of the audience, and you'd have 3 boxes or 3 curtains to pick from, and one was a really good prize and 2 were not so good prizes. It was Let's Make a Deal. So when I would do a buyer presentation, my Let's Make a Deal, if they wouldn't sign the buyer agency agreement with me, it'd be like, well, okay, I understand that. You want to take it home, you want to read it. I get that, and I'm okay with that. So let's make a deal. I'll take you out and show you a couple of properties. Tomorrow, a good time at 7 o'clock? Great. So we'll go out and look at those 2 condos, or maybe there's 3 in the one building. You're going to see me in action. You're going to have a chance to read the buyer agency agreement, understand it, and if you don't, ask me any questions. But at the end of the showings, I'm going to be asking you a question. Hey, Anita, you want to work with me? Great. Let's get together. Let's get this okayed and autographed, and I'm your realtor. And if not, that's okay. I'd rather, right from the start, that we understand, what our relationship looks like. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that deal? Perfect. Because tomorrow night, when we're finished showing, I'm going to say, do you want to work with me, Anita? Because I think I really want to work with you. I think that I can really help you. And if you say yes, great. And if you say no, that's fantastic. The worst thing that happened, you met me tonight, I showed you a couple properties. You okay with that? That was my Let's Make a Deal. We'd go out and show properties, and only once in my career where I couldn't sign you in their buyer agency that first night, right? I do the Let's Make a Deal. Only once somebody refused, and her name was Gladys. She was a Scottish lady that would be like my grandmother's age back in those days. She had this very thick Scottish brogue accent. I don't know if you know what Scottish brogue accents sound like, but they're actually quite amazing. And I showed her condos. So I'm using a real example here. I showed her a couple of condos and we came out and I said to Gladys, hey Gladys, it's fantastic. This is a great experience. Hope you had a great experience with me so far. Oh yeah, this is fantastic. You're amazing. She actually uses the "you're like my grandson." I'm like, oh, fantastic. That's awesome. I remember our deal last night. Our deal was that I'd show you a couple of things and I'm going to ask you the question. Would you like to work with me? And if so, this is the paper. I always brought my copy. I never relied on them bringing a copy, by the way. Always bring your own. I brought my copy. So, sounds like we're going to, hit it off. We're going to get this moving for you. She said, no, I don't feel comfortable signing. Now, remember, I had the experience. I left my family July 1st long weekend to come down to a guy that I trusted. I said, you're my guy. Don't worry. Here's a lady saying that I'm like her grandson. Don't worry. Trust me. Well, that experience I had was like it was the day before. That's how painful that was for me. Well, Gladys, I understand that. But remember, we made a deal. Like we said that, for me to work and go forward with you, that we would have to enter into this paperwork, and I need your autograph for that. So I'm going to ask you again, if you want to work with me and I want to work with you, just need your autograph here. No. I tried 2 more times. No and no. And I said, okay, got it. That's fine. Because you know what? I wouldn't want to start our relationship off like this on a lie. Because, basically, I said to you, this is what I would do in the event that you didn't want to sign up with me and okay the paperwork. And you've chosen not to, and that's cool. I'm okay with that. For me to work with you now, without that done, it's like I lied to you last night, and I'm not prepared for that. So I wish you all the best in your search. I hope you find a realtor that can help you. And now, remember I told you the story, I always had people drive, because I had that experience before. Follow me, not in my car, right? Remember the Big Macs? Okay. So she was in the parking lot, I was in the parking lot, she had her vehicle, I had my vehicle. I said, "Les, all the best, wish you the best." I said, just to remind you, so when you leave here, you got to go here, turn right, there's the gatehouse, they'll open the gate, you're going to go out here, turn right, and you get onto the 410. Oh, okay. And she stood there with a stunned look on her face that I was actually literally not going to work with her without having, for me, the security blanket of my buyer representation group. So I got into my car and I backed up and she's just standing there looking at me like, wow. And I waved at her, put my car in drive. I look in my rear and she's still standing it. I got to the gatehouse security. I look over my shoulder, I waved, and she's still standing there like, what's going on? And that's the last I ever saw her. Because I had such a bad experience. And I was never going to change and deviate and alter my system for anybody. Would Gladys have bought real estate with me? If I went to a casino and I had to make a bet, yes or no, my bet would be yes, she would have. But I was not compromising who I was and my business model for anybody anymore, ever. You know the old saying, shame on you, right? If you do bad to me, shame on you. If I trust you again and you do bad again, shame on me. That's a scenario where I would violate my own principle and I wouldn't do it. So hopefully that story, it's a big story, I know, but I've shared that story many times with people. Sometimes you need to have that experience in your business. And so, the first thing I started with everybody is, what's your whys in the business? Well, we're in it to make money. We're in it to be our own boss. We're in it to do right? What's your why for having them enter into an agreement with you? Exclusive representation agreement in a buyer representation or not? What's the why? For me, the why was, I want that safety net. I want that exclusive relationship. I don't want them to call somebody up on a sign. I don't want them to walk into an open house and work with that realtor. Yeah.
So once I was doing an open house and this buyer came in, they liked the house and told me, can I make an offer through you? And I asked first thing, are you working with a realtor? They told me, yeah, someone has been showing us a couple of houses, but we are not under contract.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah, so they all go to these open houses and they approach the listing agents and put someone else to work,
Yes.
you know?
One of the good qualifying questions, so you asked the question that 99% of realtors would ask, which is, are you working with somebody? And it's easy for them to say yes or no, right? And they're expecting that question, by the way. They're prepared for that question. You want a better way to ask that question? So Anita, that I know you now, like you come to my open house. Anita, if you were to buy this property for an offer, who's the realtor that you're gonna put the offer in with? They're not ready for that kind of question. So you know, you're processing that. You're trying to think of an answer, right? It's not yes or no. I didn't ask you a yes or no question. I asked you a direct question. Anita, if you were to buy this house, if you're putting an offer in, who's the realtor you'd put that offer in with? They're struggling now. You're struggling for an answer. Okay?
Most of the time, even if they don't have a real estate agent they're working with, they say yes. Most of the time, I think.
Oh, yeah, sure. They're gonna say, well, they're gonna give you whatever answer they need to continue for themselves. Ask the question that I just gave you. And watch their response. The nonverbal cues, watch what that looks like, because they never got asked that question by a realtor before. Every realtor said, are you working with another realtor? My question's the same question, just asked differently. As you build your repertoire of scripts and dialogues that are internalized, you're going to build out this amazing way of dealing with people and soliciting feedback and information, right? Because I want to see what their reaction is. And when they have a stunned look on their eyes, I know that they're probably working with somebody. Because now they're trying to process whether or not they should say the name or say, oh, it would be you, Mike. They're grappling with this like moral dilemma because they weren't anticipating that question. Make sense? Any other questions from at home? Or I said an hour, it's an hour and 40 minutes. Look at that, eh? But my whole objective is to give you real grassroots stuff that happens in the business, right? And so I'm more, let's be flexible, organic, and creative in the way I teach, as opposed to strict, linear, and sterile, which is a word. Okay. So next week, folks, I'm looking forward to having all of you share and participate in our case study. As always, go out there, have fun. This business can really beat you down if you're not having fun. Even when you have bad experience, still have fun. Okay. So we'll see you folks next week, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.